Hey guys, this is Gamer Cow concerned of a Pokemon TCG history video. This time we're into the Unleashed format, and well, it's the Legendary Beast Unleashed, I guess, is the main thing from this one, because they are the stars of all the Legend cards here. The three of them that we have set, as you can see, they are two separate cards. This time we are using two prize Pokemon stuff, because there are two Pokemon on the card. Makes sense, right? We have all three of them in pair combinations here. Entei Raikou is the best one overall, but we do have a little bit more bulk on the other two at the very least. And yeah, they have two typings, they have two weaknesses. They don't have a resistance this time, but I think at least one of them does at some point. And hopefully they do anyway, because there's like Dialga and stuff, and that's resistant to Psychic. So yeah. But yeah, you can hit them potentially for 4 times weakness if you have the dual typing, but it's only Legends that have dual typing, so yeah, I don't know. I guess Raikou Suicune hits Entei and Suicune for double weakness. That's pretty funny. Anyway, yeah, I have them set up in the braces here, so just like I had before, so we can go over them properly when we get to the stuff there. This is a pretty small set overall. Like, we're still in the sort of period where, you know, sets didn't exactly go above 120 cards that much. Like, there was 130 card sets at points, but this one's only about 90 something. So, yeah, it's a small set, which is good, because you don't want every set being 300 card things like the modern game, and only about 2 of those cards are useful. Looking at you, Fusion Strike. So, yeah. Let's go over the stuff that we do have though, because there's a lot of good things in here. Starting off with some reprints, we do have a reprint of Dual Ball actually, so that's pretty good. We can now have item-based basic search, which does not auto bench the card. Very useful after rotation when we can grab Uxie with this. So yeah, that's a pretty cool one. We have Life Herb getting a reprint here, which is used in the Helix deck that we'll be talking about briefly here as well. Absolutely despised deck, to be honest, because it's so boring. It's the same as the Dark Steelix thing run before, but it is very effective, and you did have to respect it in full format, so bah. We do have Plus Power here. This doesn't have the correct text on it for this exact format, because one of the things about this now, since we are in the Heart Gold Soul Silver on error, every single one of the cards that you see here is a direct scan of the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online cards. It's the same ones that they use there, so any erratas that happen to card text will happen to all copies of that card. Which means that this is actually the Gen 5 text for Plus Power, but we are not using that yet. This still, I have been assured that this still does effectively equip to one of your Pokemon, and you do the bonus damage and then you lose it at the end of the turn. This is important because it means that if you put it on something which bounces back to the hand or the deck, then the Plus Power goes with it, and so Uxie is the most obvious example. That'll shuffle the Plus Power back into the deck alongside itself. We also do have a reprint of Red Candy here, the final time that we are going to have this version of Red Candy. As soon as Black and White 1 happens, the errata comes in, and yeah. You can, it's interesting actually that this one does not actually have the errata text, because you would think it would. Plus Power is a weird exception that way. So yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. Super Scoop Up gets a reprint here as well. I like the card art in a way, but I don't generally like using this one because it just blends in too much with a lot of the other stuff here. Like, I know it's visually distinct here from Energy Returner, but stuff like Energy Switch, like Circulator things, they all just have this generic, like, it's just early CG style art that doesn't look good to me. So, honestly, not a particularly large fan of playing these artworks, but obviously having the card in format is the main thing, and yeah, personal bias, what do you want to say? There's now Lithograph in here as well. This just shuffles your own deck, as an item, so not really too useful. You could get that off of like a dual ball or any like search card really, so not exactly too useful. On to the stuff that isn't reprints in here. Cheerleader's Cheer, I mean, okay, technically this is a reprint, but it's another version. Field Worker, I believe it was, from the Gen 3 era, did the same thing. Draw 3 cards, but the opponent gets to draw after you do. Not really too good, to be honest. We still have Professor Oak's Visit if we want to roll draw 3. Speaking of draw 3s that aren't good, because they're not always draw 3s in this case, MC's Chatter, if you flip heads, draws 3. If you flip tails, it only draws 2. Fine. I mean, draw 2 is really, really bad. We have that on a couple of supporters. Obviously, it doesn't do anything by itself. Draw 3 is only passable. If this drew... How many would it have to draw? 4 minimum? Maybe 5? We have had a supporter in the future. Was it Dan? That like draws 2 cards, and if you flip heads, draws 2 more. And that never saw play ever. Might have been Bugcatcher, actually. I don't remember, but there's one in the future that like draws 4 with this thing, and it still never saw play. Really just not very good. Energy Returner, this gets retrained in the future as Energy Recycler and slightly improved, but we do have a decent one here. As an item card, shuffle 4 basic energy back into your deck. If you are playing a Rain Dance style thing, you probably want Fisherman, to be honest, but if you want something that isn't a supporter and you need to shuffle stuff back, deck acceleration is really cool. It's just finding something that actually lets you do that. But yeah, good card, definitely worth having. Engineer's Adjustments, this lets you discard an energy from your hand and draw 4 cards as a supporter. Discard 1 card to draw 4 is very powerful, and discard Accelerant decks, and we'll absolutely love this. Regirock and involved decks do like having this around. The Typhlosion decks, you could maybe consider using it if you want extra draw alongside Ninetales. The big one is unfortunately the Steelix. We'll get into that soon enough. Good Rod gets a print here. I don't remember if this is a reprint or not. It seems very similar, but I think it might have been Old Rod before. If you flip heads, you get to search your discard for any Pokemon, put it on top of the deck. If you flip tails, it searches your discard for any trainer card and puts it on top of the deck. Trainer at the moment is item. So, in theory, this is kind of stronger if you flip tails. So, you would think, oh, you would love this card. No, because it's inconsistent, right? But even then, it's like Pokemon Rescue is in format, so the heads effect you can do better by putting the card straight into hand, even with time-space distortion rotating. And getting the trainer card back is fun, but we're going to get a much better way of doing that pretty soon. So, yeah, don't like the card. Interviewer's Questions is an intriguing one. You look at the top 8 cards of your deck, and any energy card you find there, basic or special, you can show them to the opponent and put them into hand. It's choose as many as you like, so, you know, because it's private information still. It's pretty okay. If you have a special energy heavy thing, one of the things I mentioned Cynthia's Guidance could potentially be used for is to fish for double colors energy and the like. This goes 1 card deeper and can get more energy out. Again, potential Rain Dance sort of card here. Look reasonably deep in, get maybe 3 energy or something, and Rain Dance them on. Not too bad. Judge gets its first printing here. This is a retooling of Desert Shaman from all the way back in Skyridge, just before Nintendo took over the game. The retrain is that you have to draw 4 cards now. You cannot draw less than 4. This will matter because of cards that match hand size. Currently it would be Noctowl, but Yarmega later on will be big with that. Pokemon Circulator is Repel in Gen 7, I think it is? It's 6 or 7. Forces the opponent to switch. Might be Gen 6. Yeah, it's just Cyclone Energy, I guess, but as an item card. Honestly, flip it, as much as the flip is annoying, Reversal is infinitely better, and I would rather just play that. This is half of a Warp Point too, which we keep in format, so it's not nearly good enough here. And that's it for the trainer cards. Quite a few. some mostly notable reprints, but Judge is absolutely huge because Looker's Investigation was the only disruption card that was like actually good that we had. You could technically do the rock paper scissors stuff with Team Galactic's Wager, but that card was very risky, and honestly if you failed and gave the opponent 6 cards and you only got 3, you probably lost that game most often. So yeah, this is definitely very, very powerful to have in the format. On to the Pokemon. We'll start with the Primes, and unfortunately the worst of them here, Crobat, just doesn't really do anything. It's a very low investment card, which is nice, but it's weak to Luxray. Skill Dive is only 30 damage as a snipe. That's fine, right? You can hit whatever you need to, but it's only 30. Severe Poison doesn't work if the opponent can retreat or like switch out, or is Steelix, as we'll get into shortly. Steelix just absolutely decimates this Crobat, so yeah, there's not really anything it can do. Kingdra, on the other hand, is absolutely ridiculous. Once again, this is, although to be fair, this might be one of the last times that Kingdra is actually ridiculously good in the TCG. This card is nuts though. Once during your turn before you attack, you may put a damage counter on one of the opponent's Pokemon. Not a hard once per turn. If you get multiple Kingdra out, you do multiple counters. Yeah, that already is really strong. 130 HP is fine, that's the same as the other Kingdra from before, and this works quite well with the other Kingdra because Dragon Steam doesn't work if the opponent has Fire Pokemon in play. 60 for 1 Water is very powerful, but if the opponent has a Fire Pokemon in play, you only do 20 damage instead, which is very not good, right? Obviously Fire decks are weak to Water, so you technically do 40 there. If you can Expert Belt, that still is like 80 for 1, which is fine alongside your Ping. That could still kill like a Ninetales or something, but the problem is that if the opponent is just straight playing a Fire deck, they can probably tank around this. So you need to use it with something else that can hit fire. And this is to say nothing of the potential fire tech. Like, if the opponent just benches a Blaziken or something, then, like the Blaziken FB, then, and never uses it in the active, you're just doing 20 damage. It's not if you attack a fire Pokemon. So yeah, you need something else to go along with this, but we have plenty of cheap attacks to go with it. And this card is a pretty good tech in its own right. I think we're going to be seeing it this round with Psy playing it in Jumpluff to fix damage numbers in there as well. Donphan is a pretty good attacker with it. Lots of fun stuff there. Lantern is pretty okay. I think it's a little hard to charge, but there's definitely ways of doing it here. 110 HP stage 1, pretty solid there. Powerful Spark for Lightning Double Colorless is 40 plus 10 for every energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So minimum is 70, which is not great for free energy nowadays, but is still fine, right? But for every energy you have in play, and Double Colorless does count as 2 energy for this because it's not energy cards. So for every energy you've got in play, you can stack this up further and further, potentially getting up to the one-shot numbers of like 120 and whatnot. It is very vulnerable to Donphan, except that it has an ability that lets you change its type to water for the turn. So instead of being resisted by Donphan, you can actually hit it for weakness. You do still die on the Crapback, so it's not a good matchup, but at the very least you've got something going for it. The fact if you can change it to water also means you can play it with Feraligatr if you so choose to, because Gator would let you Rain Dance to it at that point and just get extra energy into play for it. That one shot might be somewhat important because Steelix over here is a jerk. So this is exactly the same thing as the Dark Steelix from before, except instead of being a Dark type now, it just has a bazillion more more tank ability. 140 HP instead of the 110 that it used to be, keeps it alive from a lot of the stuff here. Perfect Metal prevents it from being affected by special conditions, so you can't poison or burn it to wear it down as well, and also it just can't get paralyzed and stuff, which is very irritating. Double Colorless Energy for Energy Stream. This is a huge change as well over what the Steelix, Dark Steelix used to have, because this actually lets you go with 1 energy to get your discard thing. 30 damage, discard, search your discard for an energy of any type, basic or special and attach it to the Steelix, so recovers the special metal energy that it tanks with. And then you might not be able to use darkness energy to boost its power anymore, but you don't have to because Gaia Crush does 100 anyway. 2 metal, 3 colorless is expensive, but when you're cycling energy from the discard with Energy Stream, it doesn't take very long to get this going. And it's 100 damage, discard the stadium and play if you choose to. So yeah, 100 damage, 2 shots, everything, 1 shots, quite a lot of things. When you're able to heal this every single turn as well, it's very, very hard to kill. Resistance to Psychic also helps a lot as well, because that keeps it safe from stuff like Gardevoir. And it's just insane. Speaking of big damage sponges though, Tyranitar coming in. T-Top Prime, never the top tier deck, but I remember back in the day actually in the IRC chats at Poke Beach, there was yeah, one person that was like dead set on playing this and this exclusively. 160 HP is Goliath. Like, this is what most Pokemon at the moment, stage 2 wise, hit with an expert belt. This is just raw. 160 is nuts. Darkness Howl for 1 dark energy is pretty solid. 20 damage to each Pokemon in play that is not a dark Pokemon. You generally do need to play this with Nidoqueen so that you can prevent your own bench from just getting murdered by it. But playing Nidoqueen is a good idea in a tank deck anyway. So yeah, works out. But this also basically is just 20 spread for 1 energy, which is nuts. If you've got a special dark, it hits 30 on the active too. So really, really good. Power Core for Darkness Double Colorless does 60 and is unaffected by any effects which aren't weakness on the defending Pokemon. So yeah, you will still hit the Gengar and etc. for 120, but if the opponent's using, say, a Leaf Guard or any effects that would prevent damage, if Shuckle is your opponent, for example, or even Mr. Mime and you're using Dark Double Colorless, like those are normally unaffected by this kind of attack, but no, it goes straight through, so very powerful stuff there. And then if you need a lethal option, Megaton Tail for a 2 dark and a double colorless, it is expensive as hell when this deck doesn't really have acceleration, but it's a humongous 120 damage, so that's gonna, with special dark or expert belt or both, that's gonna one-shot anything pretty much. You do have to discard the top 3 cards of your deck to do it though, so not a spammable attack, but most of the time you're going to be using like one of these to do Darkness Howl for quite a while. It tanks a lot because of Nidoqueen and its natural HP, and then you're building up 1 or 2 on the bench so that you can do these massive finisher attacks. And spreading 20 to all of the opponent's Pokemon is a really good weakener, softener even, that you can use. So yeah. Ursaring Prime is interesting. This did see some play, I think, with Donphan a little bit. It also works very well with Rainbow Energy in general. It's probably the only usable Ursaring we've ever had in the TCG. And even then, like, it is weak to Donphan still, so that's a bit of a problem. 110 HP is fairly big though. Hammer Arm only does 30 damage for 3 colorless and discards the top card from the opponent's deck. I mean, that's disruptive a little bit, but it's not a lot of damage, right? 4 colorless to do 60, really not a lot of damage. So like, why are we even bothering? Well, its Pokebody, if it has damage on it, does 60 more damage. So that Hammer Arm turns into 90 for 3 colorless. Megaton Lariat is 120 for 4 colorless. Double colorless is in format after all, and that kind of makes this potentially usable. So yeah, very interesting card to say the least. Colorless is still an okay weakness to like hit for at the moment, because we do still have like Garchomp and Flygon and, you know, Garchomp. 2 different styles of Garchomp around, so yeah, it's pretty neat. On to the Legends. Entei Raikou is the most usable one. There's like 2 really good legend cards as we go through, and this is the first one here. This card is ludicrous into the current format. Entei Raikou Legend has 140 HP, is both fire and lightning type. That can be significant, like weakness hitting on the fire type is quite rare, so this can be good against the Steelix. 0 retreat cost, really strong. Weak to water and fighting, so it has difficulty against Donphan. That does resist you as well. So you gotta pick your matches for this one. But both of its attacks are pretty solid. For one colored and one colorless energy, both of them will work. They both discard energy as well, but strong effects on here. Destination Spin for fire colorless is a straight 90, discard 1 fire energy on this Pokemon. So yeah, very high damage for low input basically. And Thunderfall is a lightning colorless to discard every energy on this thing, you can't preserve any. But it also does 80 to every Pokemon in play that has a Pokepower. It does not apply weakness and resistance, so if you do hit an active Pokemon that's weak to one of your types, you will not do bonus damage. This is ridiculous. Often most boards that are established are going to have like maybe 2 attackers. Sometimes the attackers will have powers, you know, like Luxray, Garchomp, etc. But then most benches are going to have, say, a Claydol, a Uxie, maybe Azelf if they've had to set up something that way. Possibly a bench sitter with a power. You just hit like 3 prizes worth a lot of times with this. The catch is that it also kills all of your stuff, so you need to preserve your bench very well for that. The main way of doing that is Manectric, which does not have a power, it has a body, so it doesn't get hit by Thunderfall, and that will stop your own bench from taking damage. Manectric is honestly a pretty solid tech in general because of this thing's existence. But yeah, if you can Shadow Drop this, just like place it down only the turn that you need to attack with it, and the opponent doesn't get a chance to knock it out beforehand, then it's absurd. You are going to do so much damage with this. As we say though, it does give 2 prizes if it does get KO'd, so you need to probably just use this as a game ender. But what a game ender it is. On to the next one, we have Raikou and Suicune Legend here. This guy has 160 HP, is weak to fighting and lightning, which means it's weak to itself, which is kind of interesting, because it is water and lightning type. The typing means you could Rain Dance to it, but the attacks don't really synergize with Rain Dance too well, unfortunately. It synergizes a lot better with Magnezone, actually, because you can accelerate lightning, but the damage counter side of things gets annoying there. Because the attacks are like they're weird. Let's just put it that way. 2 lightning and colorless to do a whopping 150 damage, but you do 50 to yourself, not applying weakness and resistance. Very critical because yeah, you would hit yourself 100 if you hit for weakness. That'd be terrible. 150 damage is one-shot numbers, so that by itself is insane. The catch is that doing 50 to yourself means you effectively have a 110 HP 2-prizer that took 3 attaches to get going. So, very rough trade-off there. Aura Gain, or Aurora Gain even, is probably what you're going to see more often. This pairs pretty well with Expert Belt because of the damage being increased here. 1 water, 2 colorless to do only 50 damage. So yeah, the dichotomy here between Raikou's power and Suicune's tanking. 50 damage, heal 50 from Raikou and Suicune Legend. Unfortunately, that is always heal 50, not heal the damage that you dealt. So Expert Belt and plus powers and stuff do not increase this damage. But this is a 160 HP dude that a 180 HP if you put a belt on it, that heals 50 and does like 50 or 70 damage every single turn. That's hard to dislodge. If you play this with a couple other healing cards, like maybe Blissey or even Nidoqueen or something, yeah, this could be pretty difficult to deal with if you're not getting just one shot for weakness here. So, cool card. Just note, if you put an Expert Belt on this thing, it's effectively a tag team because it gives up 3 prizes. So yeah. Suicune and Entei Legend, a little bit sort of in the middle here. There is, this could work very well with Feraligatr, to be honest, or potentially the Blastoise and Floatzel thing that we'll get into from this set. Yeah, it's Fire Water and is weak to Lightning and Water, so once again hits itself for weakness. So that's actually kind of significant because its second attack will get a one-shot on itself here. But yeah, 2 pretty good types to hit. Once again can kill the Steelix, which is noteworthy. Torrent Blade for 2 water and 1 colorless does 100 damage to one of the opponent's bench Pokemon. But it only does that when you return 2 water energy from this Pokemon to your hand. So a little bit steep of a cost, but again, Rain Dancing to it, because it is a water type, is very helpful, so we can absolutely get that going, which is nice. Bursting Inferno is a more stable attack here, 1 fire and 2 colors to do 80 plus auto burn. It's a little expensive, but once again, if you're Rain Dancing, that's not too bad, right? Rain Dance those 2 colors on, attach the fire manually, job's a good one, right? You could also potentially play this in Typhlosion as a, maybe even as a mirror attack at that point, right? Because you can accelerate from the discard to it and then DCE or something, and just Bursting Inferno. Kinda cool, I don't know. So those are the big like chase cards of the set in terms of rarity, but we do have quite a few good cards up the top here as well, or at least interesting stuff. Not all of this is going to be playable like too playable out of the gate, but I know some of this is very important later on in the game. Jirachi is one of those cards. When you bench this Jirachi, you flip 3 coins, and for each heads you search your discard pile for a Psychic and attach it to the Jirachi. It also has a meaningful enough attack here as well. Time Hollow lets you choose any number of your opponent's Pokemon up to, like the evolved Pokemon, up to the number of energy cards that are on Jirachi. No, sorry, energy period. You could technically DCE this, but its cost is for a Psychic, so a bit hard to do. You devolve each Pokemon that you chose and put them back into the hand. So if the opponent's gone completely hog wild on their rare candies, you can devolve their candied Pokemon to make it very difficult for them to get the evolution stuff back in play. It's mostly Stardust Song is why this ended up seeing play though. I'm pretty sure Jaywitz in his top 8 Yanmega Magnezone deck actually played this as a way of getting some extra energy into play for Magnezone's Lost Burn. We'll get to that in the future, but yeah, this card is pretty cool, and it's got a couple of things it's supposed to synergize with in this set. Metagross, if you have a Psychic Energy on your active Pokemon, it doesn't have a retreat cost. That's cute, but there's a stage 2 with not amazing attacks here. It's not really going to be that playable. Pulse Blast for DCE does 60, Double Leg Hammer requires 3 Psychic Energy to do 40 to 2 of the opponent's bench Pokemon. Wowzers, that attack is never going to see play, because that is far too much. DCE for 60 is fine, but not on stage 2, right? So, yeah. Bench sitting power, we have Flygon that does this basically though, so yeah, not super good. Mismagius on the other hand is a lot more interesting. It's a once per turn energy transfer for Psychic Energy. The only reason this probably isn't, well, there's 2 good reasons this isn't going to be useful, right? As a stage 1, it's kind of cool, but it's a once per turn, so only being able to move 1 energy is probably too restrictive. It is 1 per Mismagius, but are you really going to have a bunch of these in play? I don't think so. So, yeah, that's very awkward. The other one is, even though it's a stage 2, we technically do keep the Gardevoir from Platinum after rotation, which allows you, as often as you like, to move a Psychic Energy from one of your Pokemon on the bench to your active. So we already kind of have this effect, but better, right? Even if it is on a stage 2, it just, yeah. Psychic Pulse is cool, but I don't think there's really a deck that we could use it with right now. 1 Psychic to do 30, and then 10 to each of the opponent's bench that have damage counters already on them. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure we can't play Kingdra and Mismagius, so yeah. Where was the other? There was another card, I think, that... Yeah, there was another one for the Psychic Energy thing, but it doesn't really work with Jirachi, so we'll get into it later on. I guess for the Metagross, it's kind of noteworthy that Metang has Energy Crane. For 1 Psychic Energy, you search your discard for up to 2 Psychic Energy cards, and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. So, as an evolving Pokemon through the line here, this isn't terrible. It's just, like, the end payoff is just not quite there, right? But Energy Crane is a cool attack to get extra stuff in play, so there is that at the very least. Oh, the other reason Mismagius doesn't work is because the next card we're going to see here is Shaman. So this is another one that we'll see a lot of play later in 2011, because Celebration Wind is not so. Once during your turn, when you put Shaman from your hand onto your bench, you may move as many energy cards attached to your Pokemon as you like to any of your other Pokemon. This is coming into play power, so dual ball it, and it lets you just rearrange your energy however you want. Could be very cool with Blissey, actually, Blissey Prime, so you can shift the energy around and then, you know, full heal your stuff. You'll probably need a second one of these to get the energy back where you wanted it, but yeah. Energy Bloom doesn't really do much, to be fair. We're not using it for that, because we don't generally use this in decks that play Grass Energy. Because if we want to move Grass Energy, we have Meganium, or Sceptile. Both of those are perfectly valid. So yeah, do note this can evolve, this can level up, not evolve, level up into Shaman level X as well. So there could be a potential light Grass deck, I suppose, like you know, I'm trying to think, like Leafeon or something maybe, that would want the tankability of this thing, and you could shift with that too. So yeah. Torterra is something that we will not be seeing, I don't think, because we're Flygoned out at this point. That Flygon is well overspent its welcome, but it combines with this to make a pretty solid deck. 140 HP, pretty big. It's still got the level X in this exact format, and Giga Drain for Grass Double Colorless does only 40, but it heals for how much damage you dealt, so it's another one of those attacks like the Butterfree, but it's on something that's got a level X that can gust as well as do big damage with that. And Expert Belt, of course, makes it pretty tankable. Yeah, it's just a big old fatso tank deck, and yeah, hard to dislodge. Unfortunately, the Beedrill doesn't do anything here because we are losing the other one to rotation, so oh well. Blastoise is pretty cool. It actually has the same attack as the Entei Suicune Legend, but it takes an extra energy to do. 2 water, 2 colorless, return 2 water from Blastoise to hand, and then this actually snipes any of the opponent's Pokemon, so you can hit active with this one. Pretty important distinction. If you're wondering how we're getting the energy onto here, it's mostly via the power. You could play this with Feraligatr, but there's a bit of a lighter combo I suppose we could do. As often as you like during your turn, you may move a water energy attached from one of your benched to your active Pokemon via Washout. We actually have this effect in format at the moment via Swampert, but that's rotating, and also sucked, so yeah. The Floatzel in question is the next card of interest here, because unfortunately Crobat doesn't do anything this time around. So yeah, the Floatzel over here, once during your turn before you attack, you may attach a water from your hand to the Floatzel. I know Floatzel Blastoise was a deck. I'm honestly not entirely sure why, because this just seems worse than Feraligatr when you look at it. But I guess the reason is that it might be easier to set up because it's a stage 1. My sort of counterpoint to that is that it's got 80 HP and just gets blitzed by Entei Raikou, but you know, I guess you've got to make some sort of concession somewhere. If you get 2 of these in play and your Blastoise has 2 energy attached as it would do for its Hydro Launcher anyway, you can just accelerate to the Floatzels, move the energy to the Blastoise, and hit 100 every single turn. So, and that's not your manual attachment, so you can still attach to like another Blastoise or something. It's kind of cool. And I guess Floatzel could maybe also work as like a stage 1 variant of the Lantern deck or something, I don't know. Its attack is a bit expensive for not a lot of damage though, so it's really here just for accelerating and then getting that energy moved. I mentioned the Roserade before. This card is a pretty cool disruption thing. It's the kind of card that I think is neat, and I just don't know exactly how I'd play it. It's supposed to pair with a Miss Magus, to be fair. When you attach a Grass or a Psychic Energy card from your hand to the Roserade during your turn, you may use this power. If you attach to Grass Energy, you confuse the opponent. If you attach to Psychic, you poison them. If you attach a Multi or a Rainbow or something, you do both. And that's where the trick is here. The idea is that you attach a Rainbow Energy to this, you do Confusion and Poison on the opponent, and then you switch the energy away from using Miss Magus to your actual attacker. There is a Leafeon coming out in the next set, I think. One of the upcoming sets. There's a Leafeon that does damage based on the special conditions the opponent has on them, and it's a good multiplier too. So this could end up being like a retrain of the Flariados deck. we may have to investigate that when it comes to it, because that seems pretty cool. And also, because this goes from hand, like Leafeon level X at that point would allow you to trigger this as an energy accelerant power. So it's kind of interesting. Beyond that, the Steelix over here, I'm only going to mention it because I looked at this and thought it was cool. It's unfortunately just nowhere near as good as the other one, but Guard Press does at least let you take less damage next turn. But it's so expensive and there's no acceleration on here, so yeah. Steel Swing also doesn't do crap, to be fair. 2 coins, 80 damage per heads for 4 energy, 2 of which are colored. No, thank you. Some love for the pre-evolution stuff is in this set as well, though, so we can quickly go over a couple of those. Oh, there is Ninetales too. I guess this is kind of noteworthy. Ninetales lets you discard a fire, not even discard, that's the other one. You discard fire energy, draw 3 cards with Rose Reveal, and then this one, for 1 fire, searches your discard pile for 3 fire energy and attaches them to one of your Pokemon. So it like instantly charges up one of your guys. I don't know if there's something which really needs this right now, because, you know, Typhlosion is pretty good and all, right? But I guess if there is a world where you are playing fire energy in like a colorless style deck, it doesn't really matter what energy type you have on your Pokemon, you just need energy, and you use Ninetales post rotation because Claydol rotates, so you use that as your draw engine. This could then use the energy you've discarded to accelerate into play. I just don't know what Pokemon actually needs that right now, but if it exists, this is worth noting as a one-off in like a Ninetales heavy draw engine deck. Anyway, unevolved, like not fully evolved Pokemon that deserve some love here. The Kakuna would actually be kind of cool if we were still playing Beedrill. Search your deck for a card that evolves some Kakuna and put it onto it for a single energy. Unfortunately, the good Beedrill rotates, so we're not really going to be able to use this, but it's kind of cool nonetheless. I already mentioned the Metang. Energy Crane is just a solid acceleration power on something that can still evolve and has like a useful body at the very least. Pupitar, there is one that has Rage here, and so you can Memory Berry Tyranitar, double colorless it, and have Rage on a 160 HP guy, which is pretty strong. Seadra is kind of cool. Muddy Water, 20 damage for 1 energy and 10 to one of the opponent's bench. It's a toss-up whether you play this or the old one, because the old one is a plus 20 weakness instead of a times 2. Sometimes that matters, but Muddy Water is a stronger attack than what the other one's capable of, so that's pretty cool. The Onix, there's a couple of them. This one lets you remove a damage counter when you attach an energy from your hand to the Onix, which generally doesn't like matter too much, but it does add to the longevity of the thing. But it isn't really capable of attacking in the Steelix deck, so if you need that, because fighting weakness is pretty good to hit, Swing Around is potentially good. Put an Expert Belt on this thing, it does 20 base plus the 20 from the belt, and then for 2 coins you do 20 extra for every heads that you get. So if you flip 1 heads out of those 2 with an Expert Belt on, you one-shot Luxray GL level X, which is not like too detrimental to a lot of Steelix decks by itself, but it does resist metal, so it can be a bit harder to score KOs on. So yeah, fighting weakness is good to hit. That's one of the things Steelix does well. I guess there's a Rose Raid in this set that could potentially, the Rose Raid is okay, so the Roselia could potentially do a decent bit of damage. We have 70 HP Roselias from before, which have got acceptable attacks though, so eh. And then if you really need a Call for Family style attack, we are losing Pachirisu, so the Stantler over here. Technically Stantler is an NFE now, but not in Gen 4. Yeah, no, Stantler's kind of okay, so there is that. Teddiursa puts a damage counter on itself if you do use the Ursa Ring thing, so that's kind of fun. Decent early attack. And I think that's pretty much it. This Turtwig only has 1 retreat. Most Turtwigs have 2, but it does have less HP to compensate, so that depends on preference. But I think I would play this one actually, because that lower retreat lets you go into a Spiritomb turn 1, and that seems pretty good for a slow setup deck. So yeah. That is the Heart Gold Soul Silver Unleashed set. We have a rotation, and we're playing Worlds format this week, so there aren't any restrictions on what we can play in this round, and that means I've got to do a what rotates video soon, which I had done one, but I'm not really satisfied with some of the placements of stuff there. So I gotta go through, take another look, move some stuff around, and do another one of those. I guess we do technically have a couple of promos down here as well. The Latios and Latias are new promos. They're not very good though. Infinite Wing doesn't do enough damage for how many energy you've got to put into this thing, I don't think. So SP Pokemon can potentially do this for 1 energy. Why are you spending 4 colorless and discarding 2, right? SP Pokemon also have more HP when they do that as well. So yeah, they really made sure before Black and White the basic Pokemon weren't gonna do anything. Like the regular legendaries and stuff, we don't even see most of the legendaries right now, but they really made sure that they weren't powerful at the time here. So yeah, kind of interesting how that works out, and interesting to see how that's immediately gonna shift when we get past this block. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have found this interesting. We, like I say, we're going to be doing the Worlds format first, and then I think we'll probably still be doing the restricted setup. It depends. Timing-wise is a bit weird at the moment, because Matt started work, and so we can't do stuff at the normal time. Which means we either have to rearrange, or we have to work out how we're doing this without him moving forward, unfortunately. So yeah, it'll be alright though. We'll see how it goes. Till then though, take care.